What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Cosmic Wonder. This is our Daredevil Born Again episode 8 breakdown. As always, let us know in the comments what you thought about this episode. Rate it in the comments, 1 out of 10, 10 being the highest. Now, this was the second to last episode of season 1. We get 9 episodes this season, and in season 2, we'll get 9 more seasons. Originally, they were going to release all at once in one season, but that was before Marvel Studios basically completely changed what Daredevil Born Again was going to be about. As most probably know, it wasn't really going to connect to the original Netflix series pretty much at all. They shot about 5 to 6 episodes when they decided, you know what, it doesn't feel right, we gotta go back, redo it, and connect it. And I'm really glad they did, because a lot of what happened in Daredevil season 3 ties into this episode. So I'll break down the major moments in this episode, plus talk about what I think the finale is setting up for episode 9. Episode 8 begins with Poindexter, or Dex, or Bullseye, in a secluded prison cell kept by himself, no one else around, with nothing inside it, because he can turn anything into a weapon, essentially. I mean, later on we literally see him turn his own tooth into a weapon. But the guards come to get him and he is confused. He wants to know where he's going, and ultimately we find out that they're simply putting him in the general prison with everybody else. Now, he says this isn't supposed to happen to him. He says, I'm not supposed to be here. And this is because, as we go on to find out, he struck a deal with Vanessa. And this story kind of jumps around throughout the entire episode, but we're just going to tackle it all in one piece right now. Now, before they throw him into the general population part of the prison, the guard says, welcome to your new digs. And he says, no, I was told, but then he stops himself. He's referring to Vanessa here, but obviously he can't come out and say that. Now, Matt finds out about this, and Kirsten tells him that it was Mayor Fisk who had him moved, and this lets Matt know that Mayor Fisk wants Bullseye dead, because before, when he was secluded in his own cell, he was protected. Nobody else was around, but now that he's going to be with everybody else, they're going to kill him. And Kirsten tells him that Bullseye actually asked to meet with him. Now, originally, Matt has no intention on doing this. He thinks Bullseye simply killed Foggy out of revenge against him. However, when he goes to Josie's and she's there and she invites him in and Cherry shows up, Josie tells Matt that Foggy, the night that he died, was drinking O'Melvenies. And this is very significant to Matt, because it was very significant to Matt and Foggy. When they graduated law school originally, they pinched together everything that they had, all the money they had together, to buy an office bottle of O'Melvenies, and they only broke it out when they won. This is something that Matt actually explained to Heather earlier on in the season. So the fact that Foggy was drinking O'Melvenies that night he died at Josie's bar tells Matt that he was celebrating because he believed that he already won the case. Now, the case that he was going to win was clearly going to be bad news for Vanessa, as we know now that she is actually the one who had Foggy killed. But Matt doesn't know that at this time. He thought originally Bullseye was just getting revenge, but now he knows, at least in his mind, that Kingpin hired him. He hired him to kill Foggy so he couldn't be there in court, and so the case wouldn't go against Kingpin and his empire. So he goes and visits Bullseye in prison. And even in prison, he keeps asking him if Kingpin hired him, because that's who he believed did it. In fact, he even says Kingpin wants you killed, and they both know it. That's why he has been moved. Now, Matt really just can't stand to be in the same room with him. He can't stand to hear him talk or even look at him, because this is the person who killed his best friend. But Dex pleads with him. He says, I'm bargaining for my life right here, basically stating, look, Kingpin moved me into the general population part of the prison so they would kill me. If you don't help me, I'm going to die. And Matt actually does inadvertently help Bullseye. I question whether or not this was intentional, but I really don't think it would be, since after all, he still did. No matter what the circumstances were, Bullseye still killed Foggy. So Matt's not going to help him out. Originally, I thought maybe he bashed his head in on purpose so they would take him to get stitches, but Matt wouldn't risk other people being killed just to let Bullseye out, and he would never let Bullseye out anyways. So I don't think that was intentional, but that is what ends up happening. He bashes his face into the table until eventually his skin essentially splits. So in the prison, they take him to the doctor that's there, and they do strap him to the chair, but as the guard comes and undoes one of the restraints on him, he puts the key in, and that's where we find out that Bullseye ripped one of his own teeth out from his mouth. It might have been a little loose from getting his head bashed on the table, but either way, you can imagine that's extremely hard to do. to, and he uses it as a weapon because, again, Bullseye can turn anything into a weapon. He hits the security guard in the eye with his tooth, and luckily for him, the security guard had already unlocked one of the restraints on one of his hands, so he takes the key, unlocks the other one. He grabs a pair of scissors, rips them in half, which essentially makes them into throwing knives. He kills the guard, and he kills the doctor. He then takes the guard's outfit, puts it on, and that's how he's able to escape. Now fast forward to Kingpin's black tie event. An event where he was really just blackmailing the rich people of New York City, but we'll get to that in a bit. But at the event, Buck gets a call from the prison and he says, "Please tell me he's dead." Instead, the officer tells him he escaped. So Buck rushes to tell Kingpin and Vanessa. Notice that when he tells them, he keeps looking back and forth at both of them. Now it was Mayor Fisk who probably had him moved, but it was probably at the direction of his wife, basically saying, "Hey, we should probably get rid of Bullseye. He's just a loose end. You're mayor, we don't want anything to come back." Whereas Vanessa really wanted him gone because she hired him to kill Foggy. But they confirm that Kingpin does not know this because she's about to confess to him that she did hire him to kill Foggy. She says, "There's something that I need to tell you." And of course, Matt, with his enhanced senses, especially hearing, he hears this whole entire thing and he realizes it was Vanessa, not Kingpin, who got Foggy killed by Bullseye. And he even realizes when this happened, Kingpin was gone. He was recovering from getting shot in the eye by Echo, and Vanessa was the one in charge. Now, Kingpin didn't know about this, which means in the very first episode of Daredevil Born Again, when Kingpin and Matt meet at the diner, and Kingpin says, "I kept my promise," the promise that he wouldn't hurt Foggy or Karen, he was telling the truth. And when it came to the death of Foggy, he even said, "I had nothing to do with that." That was him also telling the truth. And one might think that Kingpin would be pretty grateful for Matt saving his life there at the end, taking the bullet from Bullseye. However, Kingpin and Vanessa have their own story, of course, in this episode. In the beginning of the episode, Kingpin decides to no longer keep any secrets from Vanessa. He wants to be with her, he loves her, and he basically gives her a choice without saying it. Kingpin places the key to the cell on a table right next to a gun, and he tells Vanessa, "If I can't be with you, then I can't be." Basically saying she is his whole world, and the fact that he brought her down there to see Adam and explain the situation shows Vanessa that he does want to recommit to her basically, and it be the two of them from there on out. It also does show her that he is still kind of the old person. Despite what he says, he still has his Kingpin ways. And I think that Vanessa really likes that because that's the man that she fell in love with originally. And Vanessa sees all this and decides that she wants to be with Kingpin, so she knows the only way to move forward is to kill Adam, and she does so. And then Kingpin promises to never leave her again, in which she replies, "I know you won't." And from here we start to see that Mayor Fisk isn't so much Mayor Fisk anymore. He is in the fact that he holds that title and role, but he's really Kingpin once again. He has discovered that using his mayoral power and also his mob boss power, he can become the strongest version of Kingpin, the strongest version he's ever been. And we see that throughout this episode. We see him blackmail a lot of rich and wealthy people at his party, including swordsmen who he knows is swordsmen, showing us that Kingpin really does have details about everybody he wants to have details about, which is why he actually knew that Heather was staying at Matt Murdock's place. Buck goes to visit them, and Matt even says, "How did you know she was here?" And Buck, knowing that him and Kingpin of course have the upper hand, says that the mayor likes to keep tabs on its citizens that he cares about. But really what he's saying is, of course he's going to know who Matt Murdock's girlfriend is because he is keeping tabs on Matt Murdock, especially because he knows that he's Daredevil. So this answers the question that we've been wondering since kind of the beginning here on whether or not Kingpin knew Heather was Matt's girlfriend when he decided to hire her as his marriage counselor. It actually makes a lot of sense and is a pretty good plan. This kind of gets Heather to trust Kingpin and Vanessa, which gives Kingpin a lot of leverage. It helps him get close to Heather, which means if he needs to turn on Matt and use her as bait or as something to negotiate with for Matt Murdock, he can use that. And we go on to see that Kingpin is so much in charge now that even the task force does not listen to Gallo, the chief of police. They only answer to Kingpin now so much that when they grab the worker who took some pictures of Kingpin, Powell, who of course is a part of the anti-vigilante task force, in front of Gallo, sticks the waiter's hand in a giant scorching hot bowl of grease. And he even throws it in Gallo's face, saying, "That was assault, and in case you haven't noticed, I don't answer to you anymore." And all of the other anti-vigilante task force members in the hallway there show Gallo that that is true. He has no power anymore. Kingpin has corrupted the police that work for him, and they only answer to him. And this leads him to BB, who was also blackmailed by Kingpin via Daniel into spinning the story of Daredevil saving Heather from Muse into the anti-vigilante task force saved Heather from Muse and they killed Muse. So right now everyone is kind of under Kingpin's rule, but Gallo and BB seem to be working up a plan that I'm sure is going to come to fruition next episode or next season. And that leads us to the end, where Matt realizes that Kingpin actually told him the truth. He had nothing to do with Foggy's death. It's actually Vanessa. And when he hears Bullseye load the gun, cock it, and get ready to shoot, he jumps in front of the bullet and saves Kingpin's life. Why did he save his life? Well, that's probably the Christian side of him, the Catholic side of him. Otherwise, he should have just let him get shot. His problems would have essentially been solved and he would have only had to deal with Vanessa at that point. But again, Daredevil/Matt believes in redemption. And even though Kingpin definitely is showing some shady sides with the anti-vigilante task force and changing stories for the public eye, Matt just found out that he wasn't the one that killed Foggy, so maybe that Catholic side kicked in to make him save Kingpin's life. Now, after this moment, you might think that Kingpin would be grateful for Matt Murdock saving his life. And of course, to an extent, he probably is. But we have seen the trailer for Daredevil Born Again, so we know that the next episode, one, has the return of Frank Castle, finally, but two, we have seen the anti-vigilante task force go into Matt Murdock's apartment and we've seen him fight them, which probably means that Kingpin actually outs the fact that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that. He doesn't necessarily have to have a reason to send his anti-vigilante task force to get somebody or kill them. He simply says the word and they go do it. But you wonder why Kingpin would send them to get Matt Murdock after Matt saved his life, and it probably has to do with Vanessa. Vanessa probably is going to say, look, Matt knows what I did. We have to kill him. He's a lawyer, plus he's Daredevil. We got to get him out of the equation. And Kingpin, wanting to be on Vanessa's side and not wanting to upset her after everything they've been through and now getting back together and getting back to the spot they were before, probably doesn't want to go against her, so he probably agrees. Plus, he is doing a lot of shady stuff now. He knows Daredevil is back and he warned Matt not to come back as Daredevil or there would be consequences. So despite Matt Murdock saving his life, he probably comes to the conclusion that he has to kill him. And that's what's really gonna finally, truly bring Daredevil back. There's no redemption for Kingpin. Matt tried to save his life. He did save his life, but Kingpin still tried to kill him. Justice has failed. The system has failed. So that's where Daredevil comes back into play. So that is Daredevil Born Again episode 8. Only one more to go. Be sure to let me know your thoughts about this episode in the comments down below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest Daredevil Born Again news, breakdowns, and other Marvel news as well. You can also find us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.